Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our Dynamics GP Coffee Break, Dynamics GP Reporting, which is the first session in our reporting series. My name is Tess, and I'm the facilitator today. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the questions area in the control panel on the right-hand side of your screen, and we'll answer questions at the end. This session will be recorded and posted on our blog later this week, as well as shared with you through email. Now I'd like to introduce our presenter today, Don McNulty, who is a solutions architect on our Dynamics GP team at Encore. So Don, I'll pass it over to you.
Great. Well, good morning, everyone. So today we're going to talk about GP reporting, and the series that we're doing is going to kind of run through the different ways we can get data out of Great Plains. The first method, of course, is the built-in report writer, which is both a love and hate relationship with most people who run GP for any length of time. So what we're going to do is, let me just go to the next slide here, so first thing is we're going to talk about options pages on how to set up option pages so that you can use them more effectively. That includes inside each of the option settings is usually a date range, and the date ranges can be set both by typing in the dates, which requires that you change them each time you run the report, as well as other date ranges, which some people don't understand how they work. So I thought I'd go over those. Then there's a function called My Reports. If there's reports that you run on a monthly basis or on a weekly basis or on a daily basis, you can put them onto a list for yourself so that you can run them automatically. And that way you can just set them up and have them automatically pop through. I'm going to talk about running those as well as how to change them. And then I'm going to talk about printing. And in printing, we've got the defaults, what we want to set the defaults to, where we set the defaults for all the printed reports that come out of GP, including the posting journals. So there'll be a little side trip into administration, and then how the printers work, as well as how the send to works, which is rudimentary unless you have Adobe Acrobat. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go into a demo and just talk about it itself. And let me just do this. Come on. There we are. We'll just dismiss that. So I'm running Great Plains. And on Great Plains, you have a My Report section inside on your home page. If it's not listed there, when you hit the customize this page, it is one of the selections that's on here. It's called My Reports, and you can add. And this is one location where you can put My Report details. And when you go into here, this is where you can select your different reports themselves. So inside here, this is listing the 4 that I've put in there so far. And we'll put some more in here, and we'll go and edit some of the ones that are currently there. But reporting itself inside Great Plains is under the report sections. Now you can either get at it through the top section in through here. All of these are different reports, or you can use the reports menu that you see in a corner like this. And I'm just going to put this one and make this big. I'm going to do financial reports today. I'll do financial and maybe a couple of customer reports, and that's gonna do what we need to do. Now, options. So when I go in and I want to run a trial balance, and let me just let's go into sales and let's do reports here. And I'm going to use the trial balance. This is a report that every AR person runs at least once a month, and this is the AR trial balance. And there are 4 of them inside here, and I'll just, and they have these in payables as well. Age trial balance gives you absolutely every customer, whether or not they owe you money or not. There's no filters or anything available to the age trial balance. With options allows you to filter it. And then the historical age trial balance is the one that runs to a previous period. And that's the one I'm going to do today. So inside here, this is an option. Now I've got one set up inside here, but I'm going to create a brand new one. And I'm going to call it test. So do I want it in detail or do I want it in summary? This is a question that you have. You got by customer, and then you can age as of date. Now, when I age as of this date, you'll notice that today's date is sitting inside here. I am set to 4/12/2027 for my demo, but you would have it set to whatever today's date is. Now, most people, when they run these reports, want to run these reports with a specific date in mind. And that date itself is based upon the year, end of the month, or the end of the previous month. So one of the things about options is that when we set these things up, all the date ranges have these drop-down menus. So in this drop-down menu, what we have is we have enter date. We can enter a current. We can just use the current date. We can use an enter date. Now, if I use the current date, then every time I run this report, it's going to automatically pick today's date. One of the ones that people like to have is this one here, is the beginning and the end of the previous period. So inside here, end of the previous period. Now, GP has both the terminology month and period. And for 90% plus of our clients, the period end and the month end are exactly the same. So this will not make a difference. In other words, if you are on a monthly schedule, in other words, you do January, February, March, this will not make a difference. If you run a 4-4-5, 4 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, and you want to go back to the last end of the fiscal period, you need to use period rather than month. Month will look at, like in my case, April 30th or whatever it happens to be. So if I go into the beginning of the previous period, end of the previous period, when I set it like this, that means that on the 12th of April, I am going to get a March 31st report. On March 31st, I'm going to get a March 31st report, or on April 30th, I'm going to get a March 31st report. On May 1st, it will automatically flip it to the end of April, so that now most of us close our books 1 to 2 days after the month end. So therefore, we can use the previous period to grab the report that we're looking for when we're closing our books. So we can set that to the end of the previous period. Set the GL posting dates or the document dates, depending on what you want. The GL posting date will tie it out to the GL. What type, balance forward or all. And then inside here, this is an exclusion, which is kind of a negative. In other words, when you check this, it doesn't show it. It doesn't show it. It excludes it if I check it. So if I want my multi-currency information, then I need to leave this unchecked. Now, down here is another date range. And inside here, we have another date range down here. Now, this up here is the age date. That does not filter the date from the report. Any filters that restrict data are done at the bottom. So we would need to go down to date here. And we want to run it from the very first date, which we can just enter the date and we can hit tab. And then we can go into here and we can go to the end of the previous period. So these two now match. When I go insert, it'll say from the very first date to the end of the previous period. This will pick up all transactions up to and including March 31st. It's going to filter out any transactions that occurred after that. And then also provide me an aging as of the 31st of March, so that I can tie this to my March 31st financial statements. Now, the next thing I always do is I always check the destination. Click on destination, because we may or may not want this report depending on how big it is. So I always set these things to the screen. If you set it to the printer, it's going to send a copy to the printer right away. And if it's a 400-page report, you're going to get 400 pages. If you send it to the screen, it will tell you how many pages it is. And you go, oh no, I really don't need all of that. I need another filter to add by customer or customer class. And by putting it to the screen, it gives you the opportunity to cancel that without killing a tree or a forest. So I always set it to the screen and go from there. You can send it to a file, and you can also pick these at the time of running. You can just, by checking this, it will ask me each time which I wish to do. So I'm going to leave that one off, and I'm going to go OK. At this point, I can now hit the print button, and it will now print it. So I'm going to hit the print button. It will take a second while it generates. There we are there. So as you can see up top here, it says aging date is 3/31. Posting date is the 1st to the 3/31. You'll notice that it's gone back to 1 month before, and now I've got all my transactions. This is 45 pages. And from here, if I wish to print it, I can hit the print button, and it will let me print it. Okay? So there's not a problem there. The send to, which is what I wanted to talk about as well, is that when we hit the send to, we have a couple of choices. We have mail recipient text, which is just exactly what you see on the screen in a text file. It does not easily transpose itself into an Excel format, which is what a lot of people ask me. So I will tell you that. The PDF itself, you'll notice that mine is shaded. In order to get the activation for the PDF to work, you must own and run Adobe Acrobat Writer on the workstation that you're running this report on. So if you're running it on a terminal server or an RDS server, it must be loaded there. It must be licensed for all users of the RDS server. This can be fairly expensive, which is why a lot of firms do not have this. So they can send it by mail, but most people don't. So from here, you can now see this is a regular report. I can then print this, or I could cancel it by hitting the X. So if I go, oh, that's way too many pages, I want less, I can hit the close. And now this particular one, because I included multi-currency, gives me my multi-currency at the end of it, which shows that it's all in US dollars and I have no foreign currencies in my database. So that's what I would do. Now from here, I can hit save. And when I hit save, now when I go back to this screen here, you'll see that test is there. I can just insert this and it will just run. So now, if I come in and I change my date here, which we all know we can do down here, we go 03/31/27. So this is, there it is there. And now when I go trial balance, so I hit the test and I go insert. If I run this and I hit print, it will print this here. It will follow exactly what I just did. And now you'll notice at the top it says 1st to 2/28, and 2/28 has been put in there. What this allows me to do now is that I can now run this at any time and I know what I'm going to get. So this would be a good example of a report that I might decide to put onto my reports. So I'm going to close this and I'm going to remove this from here, and I'm going to go into here and I'm going to go modify. And inside here, I have a My Reports button. When I select the My Reports, it says what I want to call it. A historical age trial balance. I'm not going to call it test. What I'm going to do is I'm going to change the name of this. I'm going to change the name to previous month end. And I'm going to go OK. So it doesn't look like it's done anything. It just says OK, that's fine. And I can hit save and I can close this. And then I can close this. But now when I go back to my home page, you'll see it's right here. And then to run it, all I have to do is select it once. And there's the 2/28. So as I move along in my years, I can close that. And then I can close that. And again, if I go back to my 04/12/27, you go OK. If I run it now, it will change automatically with my date ranges. These date ranges are really important because otherwise you have to go into each report every time you run it and change the date if you key in a permanent date into there. Now, this only works for the previous month. So if I happen to be on May 2nd and I need a March 31st, I'm going to have to do that one manually. I'm going to have to change my date to the previous month. But it does allow you to do most of the time you end up with the correct report that you're looking for. And then you can select your different ones from there. And you can add additional filters. So also on the options I wanted to talk about, let me go to sales and let me go back to that same report again. Trial balance. Historical, test, modify. So inside here, I can also do things like customer name, customer class, and things like that. So I can restrict my different ones and I can create as many different ones of these options as you like. There is technically a limit to the number of options, and I believe it's 64 on each one. Depending on your version, will be 64 or 128, depending on which version you have of GP. GP changed that. I believe it was at the beginning of 2018 and above. I am running 18.4. So that's how you set those particular things up. So now Other things that people ask me a fair amount about these reports is, as I go through my reports, through my home, how do I edit them? So up top here, you can you can change the details. And when I change the details, it loads the personal settings, and this is going to load up all those different reports. This will tell you what report it's actually running so that you can go to the report and make the changes. So inside here, you go, okay, so for instance, I want to change, there's my test right there, and it's the customers and what it's called. And let me just make this a little bigger. So there we are there. So we've got our historical trial balances and things like that. There's the names, like so. So there's our test and things like that. That's the one that we're working on right now. And historical, you see that my report name is right here. It's listed right there. So I go, if I want to edit this one, I can now go and find that one and I can edit. If I make any edits to that particular report, my reports automatically change. So when we save these reports, one of the things that you have to say is to people is, once people have set these, you shouldn't change anybody but your own, because what happens is if somebody changes it on you and changes the date on you, then the date range that you're expecting is not there. So something to be aware of. All right. Now, printing reports. As most of you are well aware, Great Plains will try and print a bunch of reports automatically as it does things, especially on the posting side. So one of the things I wanted to mention today was the ability to turn those particular things off. So when we're in administration or tools, what we can do is we can go to a section called posting. It's right here under posting and then posting. It's also available from here under tools, setup, posting. So when we go into posting, this gives us a list of all the printed reports that are defaulting from GP. In other words, that will run when you do specific things. So if I go into my sales, for instance, and I look up my invoice entry. So inside here, it lists off here, I'm going to post it to the general ledger. Yes, I am. I'm going to allow transaction posting or whatever it happens to be. So if I go to my sales transaction entry down here, it says I'm going to try and print the AA sales posting journal. And I've got them set down here. As you can see, as I scroll down on this, these are all the reports that get printed. This one actually prints. These ones do not. I can turn them on and off just by checking this. When I turn them off, it does not mean I cannot reprint them. That is always available in GP. You can reprint all the reports. But if I do this, it's going to come up with a screen saying, where do you want me to send it? Do I want to send it to the screen, to the printer, or to a file? So a lot of people will turn these things off so that they don't print anything when they post. It just disappears. And that way it's faster, it's quicker, and if you really need a copy for the auditors, we can print off the day's postings or that particular batch posting if required. And we can get those from the posting reports. Those posting reports are also under reports. So inside here, you'll see posting journals. And inside the posting journals, all those posting reports that you just saw are going to be inside here. There's the receivable, there's the sales posting journal, the voided transactions, and the sales deposits. So when I go to my posting journals, if I was to go new, inside here, I can now reprint a sales posting journal. And in there, I've got my audit trail, my batch ID, and my posting date. There's my detail and my summary breakdown for my GL if required. So these ones are the ones that you can reprint. I can reprint the salesperson register or the inventory sales register. Those are the 5 reports that it wants to print every time you post. I can go into here and I can sort by batch ID, I can sort by posting date, and I can print them at any time in GP. So I do not need to kill a tree. I can store them inside the SQL database and maintain them for that purpose. So that's kind of an area inside there. All right. So the next question, of course, is I like the report, I like the information that's on the report, but I need to add something or take something away. So when I run my trial balance, I'm just going to go back to my historical trial balance again, my report. And I'm going to go into historical trial balance, and I'm going to go modify, and then I'm going to just quickly run it. And I'll just do it in summary so it doesn't take up as much space. We'll just take that off and we'll go print. So we look at this and we go, okay, this is a really nice, this is a great report. It's got the information that I want, except that it's kind of bulky, for lack of a better way of talking about it. So inside here, we have different areas inside here which allow you to say I don't need the salesperson, or I don't need the type, or I don't need something inside here. I can remove some of this information. It's quite easy to do. If you have rights, you can hit the modify button. When you modify, when you go modify, it will log you out of GP and it will log you into the report writer. Now this report writer is not a great tool. It's functional. Let's put it that way. It was built in the 90s. It has not been touched probably since the late 90s. So inside here, these are the different pieces inside here that we've got. There's our customer name and a few things inside here. So I could remove some of these if I wanted to. So inside there's my customer footer, there's my credit limit and things like that. And I can take these and I can take something like this and I can hide it, or I can move it. I can move it around. I can move the salesperson, and there's the sales territory. So I can take my salesperson and I can move my salesperson over to here, or do whatever I need to do inside here. I can also remove the salesperson. My suggestion to you is that you never remove anything from any of these reports, that what you do is that you move them to the side over here. And then when you double click them, you can make them invisible. And that will do the same thing. The reason that you don't want to remove it is that if you remove it and any of the functions that are below on these current transaction amounts is dependent on that field, you will break the report. Okay, and then you'll have to come back and start all over again. So I always hide, I never delete in case because otherwise it breaks things. Once I've done that, I take that salesperson out, and I can move the word salesperson. This is just a word, so I can just move it. I'm going to move it over to there just so that you can see that it's been done. And then we can go, we can close this and I can go save. We go yes, and we go save. And then we go up to our file and we go back to GP and we save the report. Now at this point here, that report is now sitting in my reports dictionary. That report is not accessible to yourself. It is not accessible to anyone until such time as I grant access to it. So then we would need to grant access through the alternate modified reports, which I will quickly do. So I think I got, what, 2 minutes left, Tess?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. I think I got enough time if this thing will come up quick enough. So then when I run my admin and I click on alternate reports, super secure password. And it'll take it a second while it comes up with all the modified reports and forms. In this case, the reports. We'll click on sales. There's the one that I just modified. And you'll see that I'm still using the default GP one. And now I can move it to the modified one like so. And I can go save. And then I close this. And now when I go back to my sales, nope. And I go to my trial balance. Test. I'm going to hit modify, then print. Make sure it's on summary still, and go print. And you'll see that the salesperson now is over here. Okay, so we've moved the salesperson from over here to over here, and I got rid of the other one, which is the one that I hid. So there we are. So that's how you modify a report. You can add different fields. GP defines what you can and cannot put on there. And the last item on the list for today was to talk a bit about the underneath administration. There is a report schedule, so you can schedule reports to run on specific days. And that's that message box that popped up. So inside here, if I scroll down and I go to sales, there it is. Right there. That's the one that we just did. We could go into here and schedule it for a daily run, and we could have it run in the morning automatically if you wished. And you can turn them on and off from here as to whether or not you want to do it and what you want to schedule them to. And then whether you will, and you publish them, and then they will report. And these are the report options. And again, those report options will then drive the different print jobs. Every time you launch, every time a daily you hit that day, it would automatically then run. And you can run frequencies such as daily, weekly, monthly, and things like that. And every day, weekdays, every 2 days, whatever it happens to be. So if there are certain reports that you as an individual wish to do, you can do so, and you can calculate the next date. So that's there. All right. Now, were there any questions?
Yeah, there's been a few that have come in.
Okay.
Do you have time for them, Don? We have a few more minutes. Okay. One is, will running trial balance in MR be better than in GP?
Trial balances on the MR is better for the GL, but it does not do AR or AP. So it only does the general ledger. I use the general ledger one for the summary one, and I use the worksheet one a lot, so that you've got a nice worksheet to work with when you're doing your books. But other than that, if you want to do a trial balance if you're looking for detailed transactions, it's better in GP. For the summary, it's better in MR.
Sounds good. The next question is, do you have to enter the date range on the aging report?
On the aging report, yes. If you don't enter the date, if on the historical one, no, you do not, but that will then give you everything up to and including today's date. So if you're on April the 20th, even though you've got it aged as of the 31st of March, it's still going to include the April transactions, which means that if I've got a payment that pays off a March transaction, it's not going to balance my GL. That's why we put the date range in the historical one, so that it balances to the GL.
Okay. And the last question that has come in is, can we add a column in trial balance report to show the balance over 90 days?
Yes, inside GP, you can add columns into there. And when you look at it, when you do the setup in receivables, the default shows this. So current 30, 60, 90, 90 plus. So these are what shows up on the age trial balance. You get 4 buckets on the default report. The extra one over top of it, you need to add manually. And what you need to do is you need to shrink the size of each of the other 4 columns, and then add a 5th column over, which includes that. You can add up to 7 different aging buckets. But the first 4 are the ones that are defaulted onto both the AR and the AP trial balances, both historical and options. A very common question, and one of the most common modifications that we use the report writer for is to add somebody because they've got 5. I got current 30, 60, 90, and I only get 4, and then I'm missing everything that's over 91 days. So I don't see it. It's part of the total, but it's not there as on the report.
Great, thanks, Don. Those are all the questions that have come in. So I'm going to put 2 Donna, could you go back to the slides if possible?
I can.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm going to put 2 links in the chat area there. So we have 4 upcoming Dynamics GP Coffee Break webinars that build on this reporting series. And I've also added a link to the chat where you can set your email preferences and opt in to our monthly and quarterly emails so you can kind of stay in the know about upcoming events and our latest blogs.
Great.
So thank you, Dawn, for your time and the information, and thank you everyone for joining us today, and hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks all.